It was supposed to be a special evening. I had worked extra hours, saved up, and reserved a table at one of the finest restaurants in town. The kind of place where the lights are dim, the wine flows endlessly, and the waiters glide like they're part of the atmosphere. I thought it would be a night where my girlfriend would proudly show me off to her friends, maybe even acknowledge how much effort I had put into making it all happen. But the moment we walked in and she introduced me, my entire world shifted. Her friends looked at me, curious, as she smiled and said, "Oh, this is just my driver. He gives me rides sometimes." My smile froze, and the room tilted for a second. I had just paid for the reservation, dressed up in my best suit, and yet in front of her circle, I was reduced to nothing more than a man behind the wheel. The laughter around the table made it worse. It wasn't cruel, but it carried that sting of superiority that cut deeper than knives. I sat through the dinner in silence, trying to make sense of it. She didn't even glance at me with guilt or apology. She carried on as if I was invisible, talking about vacations, careers, and gossip, while I poured the wine and watched her bask in their admiration. Each word I swallowed burned like fire, but I stayed calm. I wasn't about to cause a scene. Revenge, I realized, would taste better cold. The entire night, she treated me like an accessory. If someone asked me a question, she cut me off. If I tried to join in, she redirected the conversation. By the time dessert arrived, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was calculating. The arrogance in her voice made it clear she didn't see me as her partner, only as someone she could use when convenient. And that was the moment I knew exactly what I would do. When the bill arrived, I excused myself, saying I needed to step outside for some air. I watched from the window as the waiter brought the leather folder to the table, expecting me to return and cover the cost. Her face went pale when she opened it and realized I hadn't left my card. For the first time that night, she stuttered. Her friends glanced at her in confusion. The great image she had built began to crack. I let her sit there for a few minutes, fumbling and panicking, before I walked back in with perfect calm. The waiter asked politely if everything was all right, and she whispered something about me handling it. That's when I smiled and spoke clearly. "Oh, I'm just the driver." "She told you all that, right? I'm not paying for this." The look on her face was priceless. Shock, embarrassment, and fury all tangled together. Her friends stared at her, realizing she had lied, or at least twisted the truth. The silence at the table was deafening. One of them even muttered, "Wait, didn't he make the reservation?" She had no answer. The pride she had carried all evening evaporated in seconds. I leaned back in my chair, watching her squirm, and for the first time that night, I felt in control. The waiter, sensing the tension, cleared his throat and waited for someone to resolve the bill. Her friends looked at her expectantly, but none offered to pitch in. It was her show, and now she had to pay for it. With trembling hands, she pulled out her card, mumbling something about handling it. I almost felt sorry for her, but only almost. After dinner, she stormed outside, accusing me of humiliating her. Her voice was shrill, desperate to regain the power she had lost. I stood calmly, letting her words wash over me. Finally, I said, "You humiliated yourself the moment you called me your driver." I just let the truth reveal itself. Her silence after that was more satisfying than any argument. The ride home was icy. She sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, while I drove without a word. Every mile felt like a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. By the time we reached her apartment, I already knew this was the last ride I'd ever give her. She stepped out without saying thank you, slamming the door behind her. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. Over the next few days, I ignored her calls and messages. She went from angry to apologetic, but I wasn't interested. I realized she had shown me exactly who she was, a person who cared more about appearances than respect, more about status than love. I had wasted enough time being her shadow, her silent supporter. Now I was free. Her friends, meanwhile, reached out. A couple of them actually apologized for laughing that night, saying they hadn't realized how much I had done for her. One even admitted, "Honestly, you deserve someone who's proud to stand beside you, not someone who hides you." Those words stuck with me, healing wounds I didn't know I had. Revenge wasn't just about that moment at the restaurant. It was about walking away with dignity. She had tried to shrink me into the role of a servant, but in the end, she exposed herself as the shallow one. My silence, my patience, and my refusal to fight on her terms had turned the tables completely. I learned something powerful that night. Respect is not begged for, it's demanded through action. By leaving her behind, I didn't just get revenge, I reclaimed my self-worth. She may have paid the bill, but I walked away with something far more valuable. My pride, intact and untouchable. And in the quiet of that victory, I smiled. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply showing them you don't need them at all.